Hey, everybody, this is Robert Hayes, and you're listening to the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast.
When I was a little boy, the movies brought me so much joy, and the music kicked butt like nothing today. Then the world went insane, but that's when Shirley came and gave me joy in that same old way. Surely there's a time machine. Surely we won't cross the streams. Surely this can't be the best there is. Surely you're my rocket queen, got my back against the wrecking machine. Surely you can't be serious.
I just look up and I say, surely you can't be serious. And I just,
Well, honestly, we've had multiple guest hosts before, and I think this may have been the smoothest. Oh, look at that!
Hey, look at that. That's
fantastic.
awesome.
That is great. Well,
this is in my little office, my little hovel.
and how are things? How's the weather over in Hawaii right now?
That's good. I mean, it's windy. It's really windy last night and this morning, and it's kind of overcast. Had a little sprinkle going on, but it's Hawaii.
So, are you Oahu? Do I remember that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many years have you been over there now?
Just over 5 years.
Okay. So
Just not too long after the fires.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm trying to think if there are any other big scares. When was the missile strike scare?
Well, in California, we had earthquakes, of course. So we've been through earthquakes, had the fires. That was the huge one that everyone's forgotten about now because of the Palisades fire. But the big one before that was the Malibu Woolsey fire that wiped out, 14,000 homes in Paradise and 2,500 in Malibu and all through that area. And that's the one that got me. And so we've been through that. And then let's see, we've had tsunami warnings over here. We evacuated up into the hills, but nothing happened. So we're waiting for locusts. That's
Brimstone next on the checklist.
yeah, I forgot the brimstone. Looked like something's fallen up there, but yeah.
Well,
So-
we are super, super excited to meet you. My name's Jason. This is D, like the letter D.
Yeah.
And
I figured if one's Jason, one's got to be D.
that's it. We are thrilled to talk to you, sir. We are so glad that you're joining us today.
Well, that's what I thought when I heard that you had Surely You Can't Be Serious. And my first thought was, surely you can't be serious. You've got a show called Surely You Can't Be Serious. So
Yeah.
you could go on and on with that one, but it was
Yeah.
fun.
I when this finally got confirmed, I was just like, could you imagine that 7 years ago, because he was the one that suggested the name, and I was like, that when you suggested that in just 6 years we would be interviewing the man who said the line
Incredible.
immortalized forever.
Yeah, and here we are.
Here we have
Here we are.
a date and destiny right here.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce the show, even though we're still rolling on here.
Yeah.
But we will we'll have lots of fun on this one. I'm really do appreciate. Want to say thank you again for joining us for this.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. I am D. This is Jason, and we're both giddy like little schoolgirls because today we have with us Mr. Robert Hayes, the man who uttered the line, "Surely you can't be serious," into immortality in the movie Airplane. Mr. Hayes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here. This has got to be a special one in all the ones I've ever done, obviously. Thank you. I just about reached down to get my mug of my tea, my mixture of everything, and I thought, no, I can't do that. I better not. So
Got a drink and
then I have got a lot of creamery and protein powder and stuff, and I have that all over my face.
I'm so excited. I'm going to pinch the guy next to me, make sure I'm not dreaming. So.
You know who the bartender was in that scene?
Oh,
Rod McEwen. Do you
I know that
remember
name.
Rod McEwen, the poet and the writer? He was like in the 60s and 70s. He was like, all the beatniks and all the people in the coffee houses
Oh.
were reciting Rod McEwen's poetry. And he was like the big deal back then.
So
And I didn't even know that at the moment. I didn't know that. I just kept thinking, God, he's so, he reminds me of somebody. And then I was looking on the cast credits just for something one time, and I saw the bartender, and I went, Rod McEwen. I'm Rod McEwen. I didn't even know it at the time. I would have been.
Well, we were talking about it, and I was specifically talking about that scene because you have that fantastic dance scene, which is a throwback to Saturday Night Fever over there.
Right.
And you were literally, were you still doing Angie at the time that you signed up to do this? And so you had acted with Angie, and all of a sudden you're recreating the scene that she was splendid in.
Right.
And that may have been the only good part of that movie, honestly.
Yeah.
Was that
Well,
a bit surreal?
she was great friends with Johnny, and he was doing a film. You remember Urban Cowboy?
Of course, yeah.
And he was doing that at the same time at Paramount. And on our lunch break, she said, "Come on, come with me." And I said, "Where are we going?" She said, "Just come on." And so we got into, I don't know if she got a golf cart or something to get us over to the other side of the lot, or if we just walked over. I don't remember. But anyway, so there's Johnny, and he's on his lunch break. He says, "John, Bob, I just figured you guys had to meet." And so we met. He's the greatest guy. He's so fun. He was just the greatest. Love that guy. And I think, I'm not sure if he brought it up. "Yeah, I hear you're doing this movie or something." I said, "Oh yeah, well, anyway, there's a scene in it." And he just looked like a little kid. He was all, and I told him about the scene, and he's laughing. And then there's another, because there's a scene in every single that you want to talk about. And Army Archer, you don't probably know the name, but he was maybe the biggest film critic. He had a column, the Army Archer column, right inside of it was a Variety or Hollywood Reporter. Those are the two main pages. And right inside was his column. And every day, "Oh, here's another thing that they're apparently doing in this new film, Airplane." And they had all these scenes. So it was building up in the industry and all around town. And I think he might have heard about that. But so then they called him. "Okay, John, we're back." And he said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Oh, there was another scene." And he said, "What?" And so I told him the scene, and we laughed and laughed. And then they said, "Johnny, we're back." He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Oh gosh, there was another scene." He says, "What?" And doing this, and he wanted to hear every single one. And then finally there's a, "Johnny, gotta get out of here." And then I was about to tell him about the dance sequence. And I said, "Oh, there's another scene." And he said, "What?" And I said, "I'll tell you later." I just suddenly realized maybe I don't want to say. So that was a lot of fun. That was.
That's great. So just I know I've heard the story that you read the script on an airplane,
Mm-hmm.
and then a flight attendant, I probably called them stewardesses back then still, asked
Very
you about
prim.
it. You gave her the thing.
She looked like she ate alum for breakfast and lunch and dinner. Just puckered. And she had her hair back in a tight bun. I mean, all of this is like out of a movie, but it was all real. And it's when they had the little seats, and the stewardesses would sit on the seats that pop down, up against the cockpit wall.
Yeah.
And
Cockpit, what is it?
yeah, little room where the
place where
pilots
the pilot said.
Yeah, that's not important right now. But she came up to me. This was on a flight back to Minneapolis. We were going back there with Howard Cosell and a whole bunch of people from ABC shows.
Okay.
And ABC was flying all of us back there, a whole bunch of us back there, because it was like one of those things. It was like a major, like if a party was turning from Republican to Democrat or Democrat to Republican or something, it was that huge of a deal. Someone has gone to the other side. They were going from NBC. They were the oldest TV station west of the Mississippi, and they were going to ABC. So it was a big deal. So they flew us all back, And I'm sitting there and I'm reading the script because the following Tuesday, I'm going to go in and meet with the guys. And literally every single page, there was something that made me laugh, made me make a sound out loud. I mean, you can smile through pages and pages, but when you're going, you make some little sound or a big laugh or whatever. And there was something on every single page that made me laugh. And the stewardess came up, this little thing, and she said, I couldn't help but notice that you seem to be enjoying what you're reading. And I said, well, it's a script, and I'm going in on Tuesday to read for a role in this. Would you like to read it when I'm done? And she said, that would be nice. Thank you. And she goes back and she goes back to her work, and I finish everything. And then I said, hey, here. So she gets it. She goes and she pops the seat down. She sits down and her knees are tightly together. And she puts the script on her lap. She looks at it. She turns the page. She's looking, and I'm looking up at her, and there's no reaction. She's just kind of looking. And then after a few pages, I look up again, and she's got a smile on her face. And I thought, boy, it takes a lot to crack that nut. I mean,
moving the needle, right?
Yeah. And then I just kind of went back to whatever I was doing. Then I looked up a little later and I saw her she was giggling, and, and I looked back down, and when I looked up the next time, her knees were splayed, her bun had come undone, and she was laughing.
Oh.
And then when she finished, she was putting her hair all back together, came back and said, thank you very much. That was very nice. Thank you. And she was trying to put herself back together. But that was all true. That was all, it was just like a scene in the movie. It was very, very funny.
That is fantastic.
So as you were doing the movie, as you've got the part, and I mean, I'm getting all out of order here, of course, but we'll do some other questions before all of this. But as you're making the movie and you have all of these wonderful comedic, I mean, I think I saw something that there's a joke like every 5 seconds, basically. It was just one after the other. And you can't just listen to it because so many of them are sight gags that are going on while the dialogue is going on as well. But as you're making it, are you thinking to yourself, this is really something special? I know that this is going to be great. Or was it just, well, this is my first movie and we'll just see how it does?
Well, yeah, this is my first movie, and my God, can you believe it? I'm working with all these people, and Julie is so great, and this is so fun. And as it was going along, I started thinking, wow, this has a chance to be like one of those films that gets a cult following on college campuses. And I thought, which would be really cool to me. It's like, because those things last forever. They got a smaller audience, but in the campuses, they just keep going every, I don't know how long they'd last, a decade or something, but that was really cool. And then as the days went by, and I started hearing from when they were going into, the producers, John Davison and the rest of the guys were going into watch the dailies along with the boys. It got to where I used to hear that sometimes they would send their secretaries in, and I got a meeting, or I've got some stuff here. Go look at that film and just tell me how you think it's going, and then give me a report back. That kind of a thing. Well, with this, everybody wanted to see the dailies, and they had to run the dailies over and over 4 times, or and so when the word like that started coming back, I thought, whoa. And a bunch of us were thinking, this might really be more than that, but you don't want to say anything out loud. So then we all just got real quiet, and we talk about, hey, how about the Dodgers? Yeah. What do you think the Lakers are going to, hey, what do you think, anything else? And, or, when we do this scene, maybe we should try, or what about this, or how are we going to, so everything was like that. And I remember a young guy came up, and he was, I would imagine he was a day player, maybe there for a day or two. And we had a circle, about 5 of us standing in a circle. And he came up and just jumped right in the circle. Hey, I hear this thing is going to be a huge blockbuster. And everyone put their heads down, and we just turned and walked away. The poor guy is left there like, what did I say? He's smelling his arms, and he's like, oh, what's done? And so, yeah, it was just something that you just stopped, And then I had friends when they started showing the trailers, upcoming. So they go to the movies and you see a trailer. And they called me up and said, hey, I saw a trailer for your film. I said, really? I said, yeah. Those are all the jokes, right? And I said, no.
Not even scratching the surface. That's incredible.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be a part of something that's going to, it's going to be around for 100 years? Like, this is maybe one of the best movies in the 1980s. We're talking Back to the Future, Die Hard, and Airplane,
Yeah. It's just crazy. It's like you feel like you won the lottery. The old thing about you get compartmentalized, and typecast, and I always loved doing light comedy, and I did. I remember in acting classes, I remember friends of mine would tell me, they'd say, oh yeah, everyone's talking about all this stuff, but they didn't see, when you did That Full of Rain, or you didn't see the scenes out of that where it was just really gut wrenching and you're a heroin addict and all that. And they said, yeah, but that's when they were really good. And
right.
They, don't tell them. Don't tell anybody.
Right.
So,
Right.
But it's difficult to break away. But if you didn't have this happen and you say, yeah, but this way I get to be a complete actor, and said, yeah, no one knows anything about you. You're getting $15 a day, or you get to go do regional theater for, a hot dog or something, so that's the thing. You pay, what you have to pay, the price. And for me, gosh, I got to work with these guys that, Leslie Nielsen, the old, what the casting director said when they were having a hard time casting that role. Finally, they saw him, the boys saw him on an old Bonanza episode or some old, and he was playing the kind of stern kind of guy that he played so often. And so they came in and they said, we found the guy, Leslie Nielsen. And the casting director said, Leslie Nielsen? That's who you finally cast the night before you got to start filming. You can't find anybody.
Oh my
you get
gosh.
Leslie Nielsen. And he winds up being, probably the biggest thing in the whole film. And the first guy that they thought of when they started writing the script was Bob Stack. And so that's who they wanted. And when they finally were able to, and then they, went on and got the rest of the guys. And here I grew up with him, with Elliot Ness and all of the things that he did. And then Peter Graves, when I was a little kid, Fury was the show when I was a little guy, little tyke. And then after that, Mission Impossible and Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges, and and Leslie did a show for Disney when I was little, and it was called Marion's Marauders, and he played a Captain Marion, and it was he had a company of guys. It was sort of like SEAL Team 6, but in the Revolutionary War. So he'd be fighting against the British and go in and learn Indian techniques of fighting and sneak in and to me, that was like, God, man, he's the coolest guy. I want to get in his group, when you're 5 years old. And here I am in a movie with him and doing immortal lines with him, so.
It's amazing.
I remember Keith Richards said that, didn't he? He said I was doing mortal lines with somebody. I think that was different. It was totally different.
What I'm sorry to cut in, but I got to ask you. I don't know how long he was on the set for, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a humongous star at the time when you were working with him.
Oh yeah, massive, yeah, super. When he graduated UCLA, he went to Minnesota. to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
He played for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
Which, of course, they're very pissed off that the LA got him back. So when we all went there for something, they were like, we never did forgive you for that. It's quite very cool having you here. So
I saw that commercial you did, the Wisconsin tourism commercial. That was really fun.
Yeah, with Kareem.
Yeah.
That was fun. The first one I did was with David, and he directed he called me up and said, "Hey, you want to do a commercial for Wisconsin tourism? And then we'll go and we'll just shoot a funny thing." And I said, "Yeah, why not?" It sounded fun. And we had so much fun, and it wound up being very funny, and it got a lot of views and stuff. It's still on YouTube. I think it's Wisconsin Summer Tourism, David Zucker and Robert Hayes, I think, if you put in YouTube. But it's just, he said one time, he told me, he said, "Yeah, pain is funny." And I thought, man, you must be getting some good laughs because you're beating the crap out of me. It was, well, if you just watch it, you'll see. It was nuts, but it was a lot of fun. Kareem was great. Kareem was very quiet. And I think he's opened up a lot since Airplane, because of Airplane,
Yeah.
I think. Because he's very sensitive. He told me growing up, he was very shy and very, very quiet. And the worst thing that you could do is to go up and say, "Whoa, Kareem, cool, man. How's the weather up there?" He was so self-conscious about that. And that hurt so much whenever people would say that. So I think he took it out on the court. He was very aggressive and very, the enforcer kind of whatever guy. I think having, like, when I'm in a group of people and you walk on a plane, we're all kind of the same size. I'm slightly taller than, a lot of the people that go on, but I would get invited up all the time, and they'd recognize me, and they'd come up. Would you take a picture with us in the cockpit, or all this stuff. And if I'd go up to use the bathroom, and the stewardess would say, "Do you mind if I get a picture?" I said, "No, okay. Can I go to the bathroom first?" and then they'd close the curtains, then we take a picture back there, but it was really fun. But with Kareem, here's a guy that's bent over so he can walk through the fuselage of the plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you don't miss him. And man, he got lots of attention. Peter Graves also, said he was in a supermarket, and a little kid, he was over there in the vegetable section, and he's just the sweetest guy. Peter is just one of the kindest, sweetest people. And he looked down, and there's this little guy and said, "Well, hello there, young man." And the mother looked up at him and grabbed the son and walked away. I introduced my folks. My dad, mom and dad are gone. God love them. But she was a little thing, 5'2", and Dad was 6'3", big Marine fighter pilot. And I thought, well, Peter's kind of a conservative kind of guy, and maybe they get along, And I said, and this was at the Directors Guild, and we were having a screening of it. It was a big, huge deal.
Yeah,
really fun. And I said, "Peter, this is my dad." And I thought, put in Colonel John Hayes. Just so why is my mom and dad, John and Evie? But I said, Colonel John Hayes, is thinking that would be cool, But it's like, "Well, hello, Colonel, how are you?" And this is Peter Graves. "Oh, it's nice to meet you." And Dad's very kind of stoic and very reserved. Amazing guy and wonderful guy, but he wasn't the kind of, he wasn't. I don't know where I got this, because I didn't get it from him, but just I think they cast me because I talk so much. I think, but because I am Ted Stryker. But so they said, "How are you doing?" "Well, fine. Well, fine. Well, this is great. Thank you. Thank you." And then we're standing, and I'm thinking, "Oh shoot! Well, that's it. There's no more talking for you guys." And I said, "So, Peter, how you been?" And he said, "Well, I've been fine. I've been really good. Well, I've got a strange hankering for little boys lately." My dad, I could see my dad's look on his face, but he's very subtle. But it was like inside, it was like, and And my mom was like, "What was that?" And I immediately turned to her and said, "It's in the movie. It's in the movie. It's a joke. It's a joke. You guys will."
You'll
So,
understand.
My
Yeah.
gosh. So
Yeah.
it's incredible that he delivers that line to your parents, because that's, I mean, that's a wonderful part about the movie, is that all of those guys that you're talking about, all of your, the guys you watched in your childhood, they were all in these very serious like things. And it was that serious delivery that made the jokes so much funnier.
that was their whole point. And the boys really stressed that from the moment we began. Play this seriously. This isn't a comedy. We want to play this seriously. And one of them, I can't remember if it was Lloyd uh, or Bob Stack. I mean, I don't know who it was, but when they came in to meet with him and they were trying to think about, well, comedy, and he says, "Well, I was on an episode of MASH. As if that would help a little." And the boys said, "Don't worry, we won't hold that against you." And because what they wanted was, they wanted Elliot Ness, and they wanted Mike Nelson from Sea Hunt, and they wanted, what's his name from Mission Impossible. That's what they wanted. And Leslie, they wanted that big booming voice. Leslie told me he always wanted to do this wacky lunatic stuff, but he just never quite had the guts. He got up to the door and he could open the door, kind of look through into the world of insanity over there, but it was the boys that pushed him through. And once he went in, I mean, then it was like the reins broke, the horse was running wild.
Oh, man.
He was crazy.
So Robert, let me ask you this. You're watching these guys as a young kid. Are they inspirational in you deciding to become an actor?
Yeah. Yeah. My uncle, my mom's uncle, my great uncle, Hal, had worked at Universal for 30 years. And he was in PR department, and he just all different areas of that. And I remember when I was little, we had come back from living in Turkey for 3 years, and immediately my dad was shipped over to Japan. And so we were there for a year while he was in Japan. Uncle Hal got us a tour of Universal Studios. But the tour of Universal Studios back in 1960 was a black caddy limo. And the driver just drove you around. He'd say, "Look at that set and look at that set. Now we can walk in here, be real quiet." And they're rehearsing. And there was Boris Karloff, and he was hosting a show called Thriller. And he was leaning up against the set, which was the mantle of a fireplace, and he was going over his lines. And we got to see that, and they said, "Okay, now they're going to shoot it, so let's leave." So we'd leave, and then we'd go into the cafeteria, the commissary, and we'd have lunch. And for me, there was Maureen Corcoran, the Corcoran family. You wouldn't ever know them, but it was like they had, I don't know, 5 kids, and all of them were child actors. Kevin Corcoran and Maureen Corcoran, and I mean, all of them. I mean, we knew all of these, and I'm a little kid, and I'm, looking at him going, "God, oh, wow, that's Corcoran. She was on such a thing." And you see guys, with the Indian outfits going over and going through line, getting their food, just like you see in the movies. And that's what the Universal Studios tour was. It was just a VIP thing. And so he got us that little thing. Then he got me these pictures that he had people that had worked there sign for me. And I had pictures of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, and a picture of Cary Grant. And I mean, it was
fantastic.
It was crazy. And the ones that were my influence most of all, because I mean, I absolutely love, one of my favorite actors is William Powell. I love him, and Spencer Tracy and Jimmy Cagney, all these guys. But the ones that were my special for were the ones I always thought I could do those kinds of roles. I couldn't do, Jimmy Cagney. "I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy." It's a little fire plug that's just full of energy. I'm a different guy, a tall, lanky guy. And it was Jimmy Stewart and Henry Fonda and Gary Cooper and Cary Grant. Those were the guys that were, I could do those kinds. And that was what my brain always was sort of, you know, my version of those guys, which would probably be a little strange, I guess, but
That's awesome.
So did you do theater in high school and in college?
I stumbled into it in college. I transferred. We were in Nebraska, and I transferred from there. We came back, and Dad was shipped to Vietnam, and I stayed home because we had horses. So I stayed home and took care of the horses. I'd been a stable boy back in Nebraska, and so doing all the feeding and all the mucking the stalls and medicines they needed, whatever. And so I stayed home, lived with Mom, and I got into this small little college in El Cajon, La Mesa area, and called Grossmont College. And the only class I could get into was a beginning acting class.
Wow.
There were a couple of other classes. There was a PE class, a track and field. It was an elective, and I thought, why would I want to do something? Why do I want to run around a track when I don't have to?
Right.
I'm too lazy for that. I don't want to do that. It's too hard. I mean, it would have been great if I'd done it, but at the time you think, oh no, I don't want to do that. I want to go surfing. I want to go out, hang in the beach. And so anyway, I took the acting class just to get into the school, and it was kind of like an excuse because the weird nerds are the ones that go into acting, and and I thought, well, but I have no choice because that's the only class that's open.
Yeah, that's it.
So I thought, okay, if anybody asks me, I say, well, I don't want to do it, but I just want to get in the school. So I wound up going to school. I was there 14 to 18 hours a day. I was doing everything. I was running lights. I was, building sets and learning taking every class I could find, history of theater, history of costuming in the theater, and makeup, and scene writing, playwriting, and everything. I was just taking everything that they had, and then I went over to the Old Globe Theater there in San Diego, in Balboa Park, and it's a nationally recognized theater, wonderful theater, and that's where I extended it and grew into that, and then from there came up to LA basically.
So what was your first, once you got to LA, what was your first time? I mean, I'm sure you did several auditions, but what was the first time you got cast in something?
First thing that I did was in San Diego, and there was David Jansen had a show called Harry O, and the first season of it was shot in San Diego, and then later they moved it up to LA. And our friend, boy, this is like a Ted Stryker story. It's rambling on. We had a guy that became a family friend, and he was our building inspector. And when Dad was in Vietnam, he read an article in the magazine, the cover, Popular Mechanics or something, said, build your own home for 1/3 the cost. And so he says, well, my Scots blood said that sounds like a good idea. So he said, honey, find some land. So we got some land. We got the guy to design the home, and he and his brothers would design homes, Adobe homes, for people that wanted to build their own, or anywhere from you want to do absolutely 100% everything yourself up to you don't want to do anything, just have them build it for you. So, and anywhere in between, they come and help you a little, they help you a lot, they do it all, or you do it all. And so he came out, showed us this land that he found, because the place that we had found was the city was growing into it all over it, encroaching.
Right.
So he found a place, came out, took his leather soled flat shoe and just turned it because it had rained a day or two before, and it just creamed. And he said, this is perfect. This is the perfect land for making adobe and DG, kind of decomposed granite. And so the very first thing, we put a bid on their equipment because they were splitting up, the brothers were. We got it. We got the little skip loader tractor. And the very first thing I did was to learn how to drive it. I just dug up dirt and made a huge pile about 10 feet high. And then we got emulsified asphalt. We got the forms they had, and we started digging it up, mixing it up the right way, pouring it in the forms. We made our own bricks. We made over 16,000 bricks for building the house, 8 by 12 by 16. And so it was really an amazing thing to do. This kind of thing my dad would do. And of course, we're all along for the ride. And while we did that, this guy, Don Kennedy, was our building inspector. And he was the same age as my folks, and they just got along great, but he was a real storyteller. His dad was Tom Kennedy. His dad was a heavyweight fighter. He fought the last fight in Europe before World War I broke out. Wow. And came back, and he was looking around and what do I do now? And he was standing outside the Paramount, I think it was, and a limo pulls up to go in through the gate, and it's Douglas Fairbanks Sr.
What?
And he says, "Aren't you Tom Kennedy?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "I saw your last fight," because Fairbanks was a big athletic guy, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I thought I would I don't know, looking to see if I could find a job. Go talk to the studio head and tell him I sent you in there." And so he became one of the original Keystone Cops. And then off of that group, he started his own Tom Kennedy 1-reelers and 2-reelers. And then he got into the films where he was like the big mug. That's the sergeant or whatever. That's the sidekick of the detective in those old 30s movies. So Don grew up in the business. And Tom's best friend was Eddie Foy Jr., who we all called Big Eddie, but he was a little tiny guy. But Eddie Foy and the 7 Little Foys, he was junior. And Eddie Foy III, his son, and Don were best friends. And he was a very famous casting director, Eddie Foy III. And I don't know if you remember The Flying Nun. He discovered Sally Fields and that. And so he was casting Harry O. And Don said, "I want you to go over there and I want you to meet this friend of mine." He and I go way back. We're old friends. And so just tell me that you know me, because I'm going to call him and tell him that you're coming in. So I went in and I was waiting, and finally I went in the office and I said, "Hi." He says, "I'm Bob." And he said, "Yeah, Don Kennedy says say hello." And he said, "Who?" And I said, "Well, Don Kennedy, he said that you guys were friends. He said say hello." He said, "Never heard of him." And I'm like, "Oh, geez, when am I sticking my foot in my mouth already?" And so he started in saying, "So tell me about yourself." And I said, "Well, I'm working over here at the Old Globe Theater." And I said, "No, I don't know about that. What do you do?" "Well, I'm helping my folks. We're building this house." "Tell me about it." "Oh, okay. Well, you do this." And it was very smart what he was doing. He wanted to get you out of thinking about selling yourself and just describing things so he could see what you were like, just as what would you be like naturally, as a human. What we want to capture that,
Yeah.
And at the end of that whole thing, he said, "Okay, that's great. Well, okay. Be here tomorrow at such and such a time and whatever." And as I'm walking out the door, he says, "By the way, Don Kennedy's one of my best friends." And I looked at him like, "Yo," and he said, "Get out of here." So he's the one that gave me my first gig. And then he said, "Call me when you get to LA." And I did. And he got me in shows so that I could, these Sunday morning soap operas, Lamp Unto My Feet, and all these shows that were kind of soap opera-ish, like little episodic things with a religious tone. And that's where we just, A. Martinez was in those. He and I did a show together. Pepe Cerna was in them, a whole bunch of people. And then from there, it was just more and more. But it was all because of Don and the third, Eddie Trey. So anyway, gosh, let's see. What week did I start telling you that story?
I was actually thinking, I was like, this is like one of the stories that I tell, because usually I will go, well, back in 1812, that's what started.
You know, where we're sitting right now is Norman, Oklahoma, and one of our hometown heroes is Jim Garner. And I know that you were on the Rockford Files.
God, with the
Tell-
coolest guys I've ever met. Oh my
Is that
God.
right? Tell me about him.
Yeah.
It was another one of those, it was one of the early things when I got a little, some, moving up from one line to two,
Right.
four lines. So it was shooting at the Sheridan Universal over there next to Sheridan, the Universal Studios. And it was up on the top floor. And we shot the scene and then we cut, we're going to lunch. And then I'm standing in line, with the getting food and Jim comes up and he's right next to me and he said, "Everything good?" And I said, "Gosh, yeah, it's great." And he turns to the director and said, or he says to me, "Did they get your close up?" And I thought, I don't remember a close up. I think they got everything they needed,
Right.
He said, it's basically what I said. And he turns to the director and said, "Did you get his close up?" And I looked at the director and the director looked up and he said, "Yeah, they got it." He said, "Yeah, we got the close up. Yeah, we got the close up." I looked at him and I went, I didn't want to cause any trouble. Good. He was just, he was one of the great guys that you think about Hollywood, and he was one of the great guys. He was just excellent. Bob Stack was like that. He and I became good buddies, and Peter and Lloyd a little less, but I mean, because I didn't see him as much, but he was really wonderful. So I just feel blessed that I got to, work with people like that and others.
Well, I was going to say, he wanted to know about Jim Garner. I wanted to know about Linda Carter because Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Did you
Yeah.
get
Wonder Woman. So sweet. She was really nice and still is when I've seen her. She's really, really nice lady. Harris Yulin, that was the name of the guy. He played the bad guy on it. He was the Nazi, undercover Nazi, was masquerading as a producer in Hollywood. And I was a Medal of Honor recipient. And there were 4 of them. One, of course, was Lyle Waggoner, who was, in the show. So he had to be one of those. They would write him, that's what, another really funny guy, actually, very funny. And then Ross Bickel, and we hung out for a while together. And I can't remember the fourth guy, but that was what the thing was. We were making a film about these Medal of Honor recipients. And I was this young little guy that didn't feel like he really deserved it and felt guilty about, and Wonder Woman's younger sister was visiting her from the island in that episode. She would come and go.
Yeah.
And she became my sort of love interest kind of a thing. And that was Deborah Winger.
Deborah Winger. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And, and, oh God, Linda was late coming on the set. Apparently her personal manager was a guy that his stable was all the beautiful young starlets. That was like, you had to be a beautiful young starlet to be one of his clients, I guess. But
Tough life.
The tough life, yeah. all the ones that you could think of back then, it seems like were all his clients. But he would tell them, "You make them wait. You show them who's the boss." It's like making a statement. There's a lot of stuff I think was wrong and was bull crap. But so she would be late to make sure she was the last one on the set, and she was, I think it was like, "Now do this and don't screw this up. Do it the way I'm telling you." So I don't think she would normally have been that late, Anyway, so she was late a lot. And here's Harris Yulin, who is an incredible actor, wonderful actor. And he's got this double-breasted coat, just massive amounts of material and a cigar about this long. I mean, it was a huge thing. He's standing in the middle of the thing. Now you got to understand, you remember her her costume.
Vaguely.
You got it. Yeah.
Well, these cups were like fiberglass cones, big fiberglass volcanoes. That's the way that wardrobe was made. And I don't even know if I should tell the story, but he's standing there and we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And he pushes his coat back with the one hand and grabs the cigar in the other, pulls it out, and he says, "Where's Eagle Tits?" And excuse me for saying that, but that's what it was. And then he puts the cigar back in his mouth. He's like a producer. He was in character. And then she comes out and, we get to shooting the thing. And as we finish that and we move back to the soundstage from where it is that we were, and Rick Waite, who became really big as a cinematographer, he was the cinematographer on the show. And he had this classic Jag that he had showroom quality finished, mirror glass finish and everything. And he was coming back, driving it back to the soundstage. And Deborah jumps up on the hood and she's laying on the hood as he's driving. And you saw his heart sink like, and as they go by, that diaphanous little skirts flying all around. And she had her smaller, set of
volcanoes.
Yeah. And hills and volcanic hills. And anyway, as she's going past, I said, wonder lumps. And so that became the joke on the set. And then I go over to Ross's house and have dinner with he and his wife, who was this black-haired, dark-haired, really beautiful gal. And later she bleached it blonde, and they were divorced not too long after. But she bleached it blonde, then she became Lonnie Anderson. I mean, she was already, but she was dark hair, and then she became.
Wow, that's cool.
We remained friends for a long time. She was wonderful. She was really great. So yeah, there's all kinds of just little things, stories and things.
I love it. You were in Laverne and Shirley as well, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was fun. I play a bus driver and I'm Laverne's boyfriend, and she needs a date for Shirley. And so I get my buddy, Moose, who my friend Mike McManus played Moose. And obviously I've taken everybody on the bus and driven to the bowling alley where our date is going to be. And we walk in, and as we're getting ready to do it, to shoot the scene, and we walk in, and I just grab my changer and I, push the little button. I don't think people don't even know anymore. They have these metal things, and you push a button and you get the nickels or dimes or whatever you push.
Yeah.
Quarter.
Yeah.
And I went ka-chink, ka-chink, here, get yourself a soda. And the writers fell off their chairs. They loved it. And so they left that in.
Fantastic.
And then her rival, Angie something or another, was there with her like motorcycle gang boyfriend and his guys. So it became a big brouhaha that when you see it's coming and then it cuts and you realize there was the big brawl. But that was the first episode that introduced that character that became Laverne's nemesis. I'm going to rip that L right off your sweater.
Yeah.
Touch that L and your teeth go to Peoria. That kind of thing. Well, that, I don't know, 2 years later, whatever it was, 3 years later, they did a spinoff with that character, but they made her more petite and they cast Donna Pescow, and that was the show Angie.
Wow. That is crazy. I did not know that.
That's great.
Yeah. And I was in the episode that introduced Angie, that character.
Wow.
That's great.
Well, so I know that the TV show Angie kind of was your stepping stone to Airplane. What are your memories of that show?
Well, that was what I was doing at the time, and they'd never seen it. They didn't know anything about it.
Oh, okay.
Angie was I went in and I read for it. I was living in a little unit that was built over a garage, a little studio up in Laurel Canyon, built over a garage in the main house. A kid was uh, renting that, and he got cast as Brad, and they shot the pilot, but they didn't like the way it was exactly. They recast several of the people. He was one of the roles. He was just really, he's a good actor and a wonderful guy. And then they called me in with some other people, Mark Harmon and who else? Gosh, there was somebody else I can't think right now. So I think it was the three of us. Might have been four, but I think it was the three of us. And he called me in. They called me in, and then one day he was coming home, and I was, walking down the sidewalk or something, and he said, "I understand that you're going in to read for the role." You could see he was just defeated. I mean, I felt so bad for him. This is like, oh God, this is a harsh business. And I said, yeah, but they're not going to cast me. I mean, they're not going to cast me anymore. Oh, well, I said, yeah, don't worry about it. And I was leaving because I was going up to Mammoth to ski. And I got back on the weekend, like after being up there a day or so, and they said, you got the role. And then I had to see him. And I just wanted to tell you, well, they cast me. And he just looked at me and his head dropped, turned around, and he walked away. And I thought, God, this is terrible. I don't. But then we did it, and it was really fun. We really had a lot of fun. Donna and I, oh my God, we made people, each other crack up a lot. And the cast was wonderful. Doris was the mom, and Sharon Spellman was my sister, who was wonderful. I was the rich guy, and she was the poor gal, and she was the rich, spoiled, trust fund child. I was the one that didn't want to follow my dad's footprints, and became a doctor instead, a pediatrician. And then Deborah Lee Scott was her sister, and she had these slight buck teeth, and they were always putting things in about her buck teeth in the show, which it was a funny banter, but she was just like, oh, but it was really fun. We had a bunch of great people doing it. Oh gosh. The guys that did, I can't even think of their names. I got their faces. They came in on the show, and it was some of our best stuff, I thought. And they had done Cheers, and or later on went on to do Cheers. Anyway, it was just a lot of fun. But it was during that time that they had cast pretty much everybody. I think they had everyone, or just about every of the main people anyway. They cast Julie back in New York, and she was in an elevator, got in an elevator with them, and they were going up, and she didn't know that they were the guys that she was going up to.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So she was talking with them, and they were looking at each other like, I hope she's going up to audition, because she's just great. And then she gets in there, and there's a room packed with women. And then they go in the other office, that's connected. And so when she walks in and then she sees them, it's like, she's very, very, what you see that's the way she is. I mean, that's the way she talks. She sounds, she's just darling. And so they got her, they got Bob Stack, like we talked about, and Peter Graves, after he threw the script down, said it's the biggest piece of garbage I've ever written, that I've ever read. And his daughters said, Dad, but they're really talking about this. It's going to be funny. You got to read it. Again, the agent said, Peter, there's buzz about this. You got to read it. So he said, okay. Whoa. Julie Haggerty.
Go ahead and answer. Go ahead and answer. Yeah, go ahead and answer.
Julie.
Oh. All right, guys, that's going to do it for part one of our interview with Mr. Robert Hayes. I know what you're thinking. We couldn't believe it either. Yes, that is the Julie Haggerty from Airplane, his co-star. And she called right in the middle of our interview, and we actually get to speak with her. Come back next week for part two, where we talk to her and continue our conversation with Mr. Robert Hayes. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. We'd sure appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next week.